Welcome back to another edition of More to Live For. Hope everybody doing all right. Thanks for joining me, man. Happy holidays to all, man. As you can see by the thumbnail, by the title of this one, man. I kind of wanted to get a good in-depth, interview on, how it is being locked up around the holidays because, Christmas slowly approaching. And as you can see, I did several interviews with people that's been to prison and people that's still in prison. And, all this time I'm raising awareness from a good friend, Rashad, man, chosen. You know what I mean? So this interview is really, centered around like people's experiences, in prison, around Christmas time, because like it is the holiday season and we can't forget about these people. Don't get it rolling just like that, man. I got a good homie AZ right back with me, man. We're gonna keep it rolling, man. He can give me some insight on his experiences. What's going on, bro?
Not much. How you doing, my brother?
I'm doing all right, man. I ain't mean to ramble like that. If you could, man, if you could introduce yourself to the people once again, bro.
Well, hey, I'm AZ Ruction. I'm from Arizona. I have a prison channel ish. I kind of do a lot of everything.
I heard
I'm
that. That's what's
also
up.
I'm also the wood fighting Crip Mac.
Oh yeah, we definitely gonna keep promoting that for real, for real. Anybody
Definitely.
just joining us, new to the channel, man, you definitely can spin the block and go see the last interview that we did about that upcoming fight that you got with Crip Mac. So before
Yeah,
we get started, man, definitely want to thank you for doing this again, man. And
of course.
yeah, definitely. And to the new subscribers, man, make sure you hit the notification bell, man. And I appreciate all the support from coast to coast, man. I definitely do. Like, comment if you're new, and we're gonna keep it off. We can keep it rolling, man. We can kick it off just like that. So what I wanted to know, man, is like somebody, experiences, being locked up on Christmas, man. In the holiday season period, man. Like from my understanding, for one, the food is different. And maybe to an extent, the visits may be different, but I definitely hear, a lot of different people talking about how the food is definitely different. So, if you could, man, could you share some of your experiences, man? Around the
Yeah.
holiday season, how things are.
Yeah, no, definitely. Every race does something different, right?
Right.
Uh, uh, so what I'll speak on is for the white boys because that's other spots isn't really my place to say because the Chiefs are gonna have something totally different.
Right.
Uh, but for the most part, so the white boys they do what are called bloats, and bloats are pretty much uh tributions to the Norse gods. Um, Me personally, I'm a Christian. I grew up like that, so I didn't really partake in that. I would get food sent down from the big homies and stuff during certain bloats and stuff like that. But for the most
Right.
part, that wasn't my religion. I read up on the religion. Don't get me wrong. I had nothing better to do than read because I spent all my time in a supermax facility. Uh, a closed custody 5.
Right.
Because there's different levels to the supermaxes in Arizona. You got your SMU 2, which is Browning. The name Browning comes from a female officer that was actually killed by some piece of shit inmates that they I think they were actually from the sex offender yard if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. And then you have SMU 1, which you get a little bit more privileges. So like SMU 2, we're on complete total 23-1 lockdown.
Right.
It takes 2 guards for us to be able to leave our cell, and we're shackled, belly chains, handcuffs, all the way to ankles. And then you go to SMU 1 once you get to move down. And SMU 1 you actually get to work. So like I was the pod trustee for a while. So I made 10 cents an hour and I was able to clean and stuff like that. But I made my money with side hustles with that, passing kites, bringing this person this from cell to cell while I'm sweeping and stuff, and
Taking
that
advantage
was
of being out. Yeah. I didn't mean to cut you
yeah.
off, bro,
No, you're good.
but yeah,
Hey, going to SMU1 was the first time I was able to leave my cell without being shackled,
right.
and I spent 2.5 years doing that, being in SMU2. And so it was cool to be able to run around and, like kind of, put a face to the voice, because everything we do in there is by voice for the most part. You know what I mean? Like, don't get me wrong, you can when you go to the showers and stuff, or go to rec, you can walk by and but you don't always look in the cell, because it's also a respect thing. They might be doing something, but you can walk by and you'll be cuffed up, and you're like, hey, what's going on, Wood? What's going on, Rasa? Hey, what's going on, Kinfolk? You know what I mean? And just, and just kind of give your, you know, say what's up. It just depends on how cool you are with them. If you're not really cool with those individuals on a certain level, and you'll know, like you're gonna know not to walk up to somebody's cell and like look in and be like, yo, what up? You know what I mean? You're gonna know. Some people don't really like that. For the most part, though, they don't. Most people don't really trip on that, because you guys we're all living together. You know what I mean? We might not be living in the same cell, but we're all living together. In a sense. Um. So back on to the holidays thing. So for me, I celebrated Christmas normally. You know what I mean? My Sally and I we would do, like make spreads and stuff like that, and have like Christmas dinners and stuff, would, do our thing. Um we try to normalize it, cuz him and I were both believers of God. So
Right.
we were actually able to celebrate it pretty much the same. Um and we would make, do certain projects and stuff and give each other gifts to try and kind of keep it normalized
Right.
as
Right.
much as possible. And the reason why I say that is because we're getting out at some point. So deep down inside, you try and keep your normality. You know what I mean? You try and keep certain things. A lot of guys would get like Christmas visits, stuff like that. I didn't get visits my whole time. So I didn't look forward to visits. But what I would do is I do art. So I would like be constantly busy for the whole month of Christmas, pretty much doing like Christmas cards,
Right.
special portraits, stuff like that, and then plus for my own family, I would have Christmas cards made. And that's what I would make the Christmas cards. So we try and do stuff different. I want to say we got different food for Christmas, but can't remember, to be honest.
Well,
I
let me.
know for like certain holidays we did Thanksgiving. Believe it or not, believe it or not, the best meal all year long was Juneteenth. Believe it or not, everybody looked forward to that meal.
Oh yeah.
Um, they would give out big old turkey thing, chicken things. You know what I mean? It was a whole meal. I usually sold my chicken though. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like I would get like 3 bags of coffee. That's like almost $20 for just a little piece of chicken. You know what I mean? But for me, for most people, that's the best meal. They give us the best food there. Thanksgiving is kind of, you know what I mean? it's prison food, you know what I mean? So most people aren't eating, they don't want to eat that. Normally we'll put it into what we call cars, and it'd be like cleaned out coffee bags, bean bags, and we put little tabs on them. And then we can, and a lot of people will shoot their food to other people that might not be getting store or something like that, you know?
Right.
So that was pretty much, that was pretty much how we spent Christmas, you know what I mean? Everybody is going to visits and, you know, kind of just doing their own thing, you know what I mean?
Trying to make it trying to make, like you said, trying to make it some type of normal, man, like get some normality out of it. So
Definitely.
let me ask you this, bro. Like, I was just thinking about this as we were talking, bro. So like, so being that, on Christmas as well as, Thanksgiving, being that, it's always some type of big sports game on. Like, was there ever issue around the holidays? Like, it's a big game, so it's a lot of money on the line, so it might be tensions or anything like that.
Yeah, no, definitely. There's always gambling going on.
Right.
Always. Hey, look, I'll tell you right now, if there were two snails outside of our cell going about the same starting distance, you can guarantee 50% of the pod is betting on which snail is going to get to the very end first.
Right.
And then they're going to have side bets on which one might die first before they get to that end point. But with the games, sports is a big deal in prison, especially in Arizona. I don't know for other states, but I'd imagine it's the same. But yeah, I mean, we're always betting on sports. Everybody's watching sports. You got dudes that normally on the street would never watch baseball or football, but they come to prison, and most of the time they'll bet on it or they'll keep up on it because they got nothing better to do, especially in the supermax. We have nothing better to do than work out, read, watch TV, and if you do arts and crafts of some sort.
Cool, man. I definitely understand that. Like I said, bro, I appreciate you, for sharing, man. And
Oh
this is
yeah,
the holiday season, man. So I just want to remind my viewers, man, that if you got people behind that wall, man, definitely keep in touch, man. A simple card this time of the year,
something.
it can mean a lot to somebody. So I ain't really want to, kind of go away from what you were talking about, man, because I definitely,
Yeah.
definitely listening and learning, man. But I definitely, throughout interviews that I watch and interviews that I've done, I've definitely heard a lot about the gambling, in prison. And I definitely, it just, like I said, man, it just kind of crossed my mind, knowing that it's big games on the holidays, thinking that,
Oh yeah,
that could trigger something, with a lot of money on the line, man. Some tensions could be up,
definitely.
things like that. So I definitely appreciate, you sharing your holiday experiences, man, everything. Dealing with Christmas, like you said, man, the fact that you didn't get that many visits, like, you really can't explain, what those visits were like on the holidays. You know what I mean? So I appreciate you being honest about that. So I
Yeah.
definitely I kind of want to shift gears just a little bit. We really didn't talk too much about this in the first interview, but since we're talking about being locked up on Christmas, I think it's definitely right that we also talk about, just some of the simple politics, in Arizona State prison, and being that you were on a high level supermax. So
Hmm.
if you could, man, anything you could share about those experiences.
Uh, like what do you mean exactly?
Well, as far as like well, I'm my fault, man. I should have
No,
worded
you're
that.
good. You're good.
Um,
I just want to be more that way. I can be more specific for you.
as far as the politics, you know, the gang politics, and more so, I definitely understand, like, the racial separation or whatever, and it's kind of like California, prison system. And I interviewed
Right.
a few guys about California prison system.
Definitely.
So if you could share
Um,
something like that.
I mean, there's a lot of like little rules and guidelines that you gotta follow. Um, so 10 years ago, if you were a white Crip or a white blood or whatever, you were getting stabbed for
Right.
sure, and you were gone. Nowadays, basically what they tell you is while you're in here, you're a wood. If you're a blood or a Crip or any other organization that is not a white organization, um, and it really doesn't matter if you're a white organization, because if you're a skinhead, you got to drop your laces and pick up the wood flag. So basically, so now, because times change, newer guys come in and become the big homie, and the older guys end up getting pushed out at some point, and rules and things change like that. So now, if let's say if I was a Crip coming in, I couldn't bang Crip at all. And there's
Right.
gonna be a lot of people that are like, a lot of dudes that are like, oh yeah, hey, I don't care, I'm Crip till I die. Ain't nobody telling me what I can and can't do. Come on, man, keep it real. When you got white boys with bangers like this big coming at you, you're gonna change your tone. I don't care how big or bad you are, because if you're on a lower level yard to where more than just your celly can get at you, you're
Right.
gonna have a few white boys on you with nice sized bangers, you know. And let's just say you take out, let's say they send one dude to come and change your mind, and you mollywop him, you beat me, put the tippers on him. Well,
Right. Right.
guess what? There's gonna be three more white boys that are gonna come in and handle you. And if by some crazy thing that you survive that and are still standing there, guess what? Six more are gonna come in there. They're gonna keep coming. So I say that because you'll probably get comments of people that are like, "Well, I don't care what it is. I stand on mine." You might do that. Just be prepared to lose your life over that, because it will happen, and that's a promise. And not
I definitely.
everybody. What's that?
Oh, I didn't. I didn't want to interrupt you, man. I just
No, you
wanted to,
good.
to add a quick disclaimer, man. Like you said, man. People might not understand, but something that spoke about. I'm not sure if we were already, on the interview or not, but like the fact that you say a lot. You speaking on white boys. You speaking on the white race. Period. So I want my viewers, to get an understanding of when it comes to prison politics, you really only can speak on your race. You know what I mean? So
Right.
I kind of want to throw that out.
Definitely.
So
Thank you.
people can get a clear understanding of that, because some of my other guests that I have, when they're telling me their experiences, they're only speaking on the black race or whatever, and they
Right.
also mention they mention to me on camera or off camera that they only gonna speak about their own race, and in
Right.
certain cases they only gonna speak about their own gang as well. So
Yes.
so I definitely, like I said, I appreciate you for sharing that, and I kind of wanted to clear that up as well. But we'll do other races. What I'm asking you mainly is like the different organizations that existed within the other races, not necessarily of how things went or anything like that.
Mhm. So you'll have the woods, and that's all we are. We're
Right.
woods. There's no other subdivision of gangs. We don't go by hoods or by streets. Uh, the Mexicans, they call themselves the Raza,
Right.
and they're ran by the La M. Uh, that's where they kind of get their orders from, and people all know this. This is all stuff that people can see on the internet. Um, And then you have the Chiefs, and they're the Native Americans. They had two organizations, the Warrior Society and the Dene. They've been at war with each other. They just had a peace treaty, but they were at a war for quite some years. Only a couple years before I went to prison, they made a peace treaty with each other, but they were killing each other on sight. Hey, Chiefs are some of the most gangster people you'll ever see. Them dudes, if they gotta smash somebody, just like pretty much with any race, but I've seen Chiefs really get it in too, like real tough, because they have something a little bit different. I feel like they have they go by, I'm trying to think of how to explain it, because we all got pride,
Right.
but I feel like it's something different with the Native Americans. You know what I mean? Like,
Well,
I what's that?
I hate to keep interrupting you, man,
No,
but
you're good.
it's different things that that pop in my mind like while we're talking, man. So
Yeah,
you know, from the way you're describing it, and correct me if I'm wrong, the Native Americans, they're really, when it comes to numbers, they're really functioning as an entire car versus,
yeah,
you know, and I'm just trying to connect the dots because like all of this to me and to some of my viewers here on the East Coast, like West Coast politics or whatever. So like
right.
I'm trying to, connect the dots and make sure I got a full understanding. In Arizona, the Native Americans function and move like, one of the main cars. Like you said it's the Woods, the native the Hispanic, you said Rasas, you know what I mean? And then you said the Native American. So from my understanding, when it comes to the California prison system, the Native Americans would be in in a car called, I think the other car, mainly because like that's a group that doesn't have like a lot of numbers or whatever. It'd be like a lot of
They
different
don't. They
races.
still don't. They don't have a lot of numbers in Arizona.
Okay.
But
I want to,
we
yeah, I want to understand on that.
let me so so to keep it real, when it comes down to it, when it comes down to riots and stuff, everybody's together except for the blacks, right?
Right.
Um, it's usually the prison system versus the blacks because they have low numbers, and now they don't have any organization because the Mau Mau's died out. So now they have guys that are just, there's no organization. So the other races look at them like, damn man, like what's going on? Hey, we just told you that dude you guys had on the yard is a pedophile, and he's still here. Why? And they'll be like, well, we don't have the numbers. We're trying to, and they'll be like, no. Like, if you don't get rid of him, then it's going to pop off a whole riot. Now, back in the day, because I wasn't there, but from what I understand, when the Mau Mau's were there, things were different. Everybody, they all worked with the other races as well. Because the Mau Mau's they were militant, just like the white boys, the Mexicans, and the Chiefs. They were militant. They moved militant like. They were, you'll get a lot of like backstabbing, or you know what I mean, and that's due to not enough organization and not enough structure. And when you don't have structure in a place that is completely filled with structure, it's mayhem with inside that inner circle, if that makes any sense.
It
You know
does.
what I mean?
Uh, like I said, man, like the more we talk, man, like some of these questions, man, they weren't,
Hmm.
I didn't already have them prepared, whatever. But
Yeah,
like you said, man, like once enter that, man, like once you enter that structure, man, it's like certain rules and guidelines, man. And that just makes me
definitely.
think, man, like, in an event, man, like we kind of spoke about this off camera, man, like in an event, if certain, situations, circumstances occur, before, people would even enter the system, whatever, and it's two races, basically on the same case, like how would, in a scenario like that, how would that work out?
Uh, to give you an accurate answer, I honestly, I don't know. Only because I've never really seen that scenario play out. Has it happened? I'm pretty sure. But I was in a supermax, so
Right.
my interactions with people were so limited and small. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like we might have had like, let's see, 20. We had maybe at the most 40, 38 people in one pod. And I would be with those people for 6 to 8 months. Versus when you're on a yard, a regular lower custody yard, you're seeing hundreds of people. So I've never, dang, I've never heard of that situation happening. Like when we talked about it, I was going to tell you that,
Right.
but you were, you're like, hey, let's save it for the thing, and I was like, okay, but I really don't, man. I couldn't tell you because I don't know how that works so much. Now, you did
Somebody
say
can leave a comment.
prior in the same thing. You said, what if one of them turns state?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, that's going to be a bad look for either one of them. Whichever
Right.
one does it, the white dude or the black dude, doesn't matter, or the Mexican dude, whatever. It doesn't matter. Whoever turns state, it's going to be all bad for that person.
Now,
You know what
now,
I
like
mean?
you said, I'm just throwing scenarios out. I'm just throwing scenarios out. But
Yeah, no, definitely. That's a good one because I've never been asked that and I've never seen that. So now I'm curious to know now.
right. And like you said, man, it could be certain situations, dealing with, different races that they might not have the numbers and they might not want to, get rid of somebody. So,
Right,
like things like that, because these guys looking at each other and they already know one told on the other. Like
hmm,
that's just bad for everybody involved. And then if like people don't want to get rid of them, I think that's
right.
always lead to
I can I can tell you a
right.
situation. I can tell you a situation that happened. So
All
the
right.
big homie was upstairs from me in Supermax, right? And he had gotten a kite in, and so um a black dude had came into a yard and he had uh multiple cases of sexual assault. Um and just so people know, I'm not saying like that specifically because there's tons of white dudes that come in and have sexual assault, tons of Mexican dudes. It's
You
just
just
this is a
you giving me
this,
a story to go with the
right.
topic at hand.
This
So yeah,
yeah.
it's
This is a real scenario that happened.
exactly
So this dude came onto the yard, and he came onto a yard where the blacks had really low numbers, and they tried to keep it hush hush. But somebody recognized that dude, and then from being on, he had slipped through the cracks of the sex offenders. So in
mm,
Arizona, they don't allow sex offenders to go to a regular yard because they have such a small. There, I think it's like 14, an average of 14 hours that they're alive if they make it because we just kill them.
right.
And somehow he made it through the cracks, and they had let him know like, hey, he needs to go. and they didn't want to let it go. So we can't just pop off a race riot. It has to go through a chain of commands before that actually takes place and happens. So it takes a little bit. So it took about a week or so for the kite to get to my big homie. And later on, I'll just speed up through it. Later on, when I asked him, I said, "So, hey man, what happened with that? The whole thing? Like, what did you say?" And he said, "All I wrote was tell them either he leaves the yard or we kill everybody on that yard that's not white and Mexican. And, we kill all the blacks. We'll kill them all." And he got a kite back about a week later that said that they rolled him up in 20 minutes to get in that kite. He was gone. And it only took 20 minutes. Once they found out what was going to happen, he was gone. They didn't even try and argue. Nobody tried to argue. There was nothing. He was just gone. But that's also because the whites and the Mexicans, we outnumber the blacks probably like 6-1, 7-1. You know what I mean? So it's all numbers. It's all numbers in prison. Hey, I don't mean to cut you off, bro. Hey, I'm gonna use the bathroom just real quick, bro. Is that cool? Like 2 seconds. All right, I'll be right back.
For sure, man. More to live for. Quick commercial break. I'll take time to try some popcorn. Enjoy the story, man. Of the homie, AZ. Arizona. Arizona is definitely in the house. Man, I used to smoke Arizona. Leave a comment if you ever had some AZ. What you know about that AZ back in that 02? 02 commercial, right? Voice of the North.
All right.
Oh, we good, bro?
Oh, you good?
Yeah, I'm still here. Do your thing. I'm listening.
All right. So I'll tell you a heartbreaking story that still messes me up to this day. So just to give people an idea, hey, it's not bad blood towards like blacks and stuff. So to give people an idea, this is something that messed me up. And my cellie he never said it, but I could tell it messed him up too. So we had these younger black dudes down. They were kids. They were like 20, 19, in the supermax with us, and super cool dudes, man. One of them, his name was Tone, and he was trying to learn how to draw and stuff. So I would always help him out. I'd always send over, like I would draw stuff, and then I would put little lines and be like, "Hey, you should shade here. You should do this here. You should do that there."
Right.
And because I couldn't face to face with him, so that was how I would, we talked on the run all the time, but that was my only. I couldn't sit down with him and be like, "Yo, okay, look, here's what you do." So I'd have to draw it out literally. His cousin, his blood cousin, ended up becoming his cellie. And he didn't have a TV. He didn't have family. He was just like me. He didn't have the family to help give him money. He didn't have a TV like me. So we related on a lot of stuff. And when his cousin came in, his cousin was the opposite. He had a TV. He was getting like $300 in store. Like they were living life good after that. And everybody on the run was happy for him because he was he was a real good, like, young dude, you know? He was real polite. You know what I mean? When everybody explained the rules of the run and the cluster stuff, he remembered it. He didn't, a lot of youngsters forget stuff,
Right.
but he was on top of it. So everybody really liked that dude. And plus, he would chop it up with you. You know what I mean? He was a good dude. So poor dude. So he ended up getting a letter from his baby mom, and his baby mom had found out that his cousin was a celly. Well, keep in mind, this dude wasn't getting no money on his books, right?
Right.
His cousin was getting about 300. Turns out, because she wrote him and told him. Turns out that whole time, his family was putting, his cousin's mom and dad or whatever, they were putting $200 on his books. Turns out Tone, his baby mom, had been sleeping with his cousin on the streets prior, and she was the one putting the other $100 on homeboy's books, right? He had no idea.
Dang.
They were talking on the phone, so he just thought she was hurting, had bad times. Turns out not even like that.
Dang.
So then they have an issue. They squabble it out a couple of times. You can hear him banging around in the cell. Then all of a sudden he found out that his cousin was a rat, was telling on people and shit. Multiple people, not just one person. This dude had multiple cases where he was telling on people. So he banged them out. Boom, 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 got rid of them. And then he was back to being in a cell with no TV, no store, no nothing for like 2 weeks. And this is the part that really broke my heart. Because the other stuff, man, I felt horrible for him. I couldn't imagine, feeling like that in a place like that at that time.
Right.
But what really broke my heart was we had gotten word from the lower yards that we were going to have a riot, a race riot. So people got to understand, in Arizona, when a race riot breaks out, the Mexicans and the whites were always together, which makes our numbers, that much bigger. So we had gotten word that there was going to be a riot with the Woods and the blacks. Now, when that happens in a supermax setting, we're not rioting, right? We're stuck in the cell, so there's nothing we can do. But we cannot talk to them, to the other race, until that is resolved. So we get word back. Marcelli's like, hey, Wood, hey, you can't talk to Tone anymore until we figure this out. And I'm like, dang, man. I was like, can I let him know? He's like, no, you can't say a word to him. You can't say, when he says good morning, Wood, you better not say nothing. And I'm like, dang. Morning comes around, Tone pops up. He's like, excuse me, on the run. Hey, what's up, Wood? I couldn't say nothing. Quiet. And everybody else in the run knew what was up. So there was no other black person in our run, especially one that knew what time it was, to let him know, like, hey, just look, this is what's going on. Give it a couple of days, it'll pass over.
Right.
So nobody could explain this to that dude. The Mexicans couldn't talk to him. The chiefs couldn't talk to him, nothing. And he's sitting there and he's like, Wood, hey, Wood. And I'm like, man. And I'm sitting by the cell, like by the door, and I have my forehead just kind of sitting on the door, and I'm just like, man, and I'm like shaking my head like, dang, I can't even say nothing. And of course, we'll consider somebody a piece of shit if they do certain things, right? So
Right.
like if somebody is gonna piece of shits in their eyes will bang on a cell for 10 hours straight, right? We consider that that stuff that people that are no good usually will do. And I'm not saying Tone was no good because he wasn't. He was as solid as they come. It was just that he was young in a place where nobody else he could talk to at that moment. Because he ended up getting moved to another pod where there were more black dudes, which was good though, because he didn't have anybody at that time to let him know, like, hey, just chill out. But so he started banging on the doors, boom, 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 for like 8 or 10 hours. He started flooding the cells with his toilet because nobody would talk to him. And
Right.
it sucked because all it would have took was to be able to say, yo, hey, Tone, just give it like 2 or 3 days, bro. He did that shit for 13 hours straight, flooding the toilets, banging on the doors. Guess what? That race riot never popped off, and it was over within 24 hours. And then after that, nobody could talk to him even then because he was doing stuff that everybody considered to be no good moves.
Right.
And that sucked because I messed with Tone really tough. You know what I mean? We used to shoot back and forth cassette tapes. You know what I mean? Because I grew up on rap my whole life. I've been listening to rap since 92, 91. So I'm kind of like a rap buff. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like you got history buffs. I'm a rap buff. You know what I mean? And man, I told that story because it just shows how the politics go. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter how cool you are with somebody,
Mm-hmm.
you got to follow those rules. And by me having to follow those rules, it ended up I couldn't talk to somebody that I thought was probably one of the coolest dudes I met in there ever again. I can never talk to him again.
Damn.
That that, that broke my heart because I really liked that dude, and he was such a good. He was a good little youngster. You know what I mean? Yeah, I fell for that dude because he had just gone through all that other shit. A week prior to this, he had
Right.
just found out that his cousin was ratting on people. And I think his cousin, if I'm not mistaken, he told on him at one point in time too. Um, Not on the street, on some prison shit. But I could be mistaken about that. But either way, he found out his cousin was no good. He found out that his cousin was banging out his baby mom, blowing her back out while he's in prison. And then he comes to prison, gets maxed out, becomes his cellie. He thinks he's got family in the cell, but really, all the other dudes in the pod are closer to family to him, even though we're different races and different politics. When you think about it, we were closer to family to that dude than his own cousin, who was blowing his baby mom back out and getting money from her while he's getting no money. It's just crazy to think about certain little things like that. I've never
Damn.
told that story before, so that's something.
Appreciate you sharing it, man. I definitely appreciate you for sharing it. Yeah, man, it just goes in to show people, man, like, all these things occur in prison. Then when you throw in the politics, man, like that just add so much more to it, man. Like the fact that y'all were already cool, but you really couldn't, you couldn't speak to them and let them know what was going on, man, because of the politics, man. So
Yeah, because I would have ended up in a wreck. And
yeah,
hey, when it comes down to it, I'm not losing. I ain't losing no good points on my end to help nobody else out like that. In that point,
definitely
just because
politics. I
I'm
want my
getting
people
poked.
to get a good understanding of the politics, man. So like, I definitely understand them through the interviews that I've, like I said, that I watched and that I done, man. So you don't come off a certain type of way, to me. You know what I mean? To be totally honest, like
I
on camera,
appreciate it.
off camera. You know what I mean? Because I definitely
Yeah,
understand, like, you know, like you said, man. Like once you enter, the prison system, man, the folks that go in them. So all these experiences that you telling me and sharing with my guests, man, like those are, experiences that you had like when you were living in these politics, and you don't necessarily live in these same politics on the free world. You know what I mean? So
no,
I
not at
definitely
all.
I definitely understand that. So
Yeah,
like I said, bro, I appreciate you for sharing it, man. I definitely want to wish everybody watching, man, a happy holidays, man. And if you got
and
somebody,
likewise.
for sure, man, if you got somebody on the inside, man, this for my viewers, man. You got somebody on the inside, be sure, to check in with them on a holiday, send them a postcard. This ain't the '90s. I don't necessarily know what type of care package that they got or whatever, but everything's digital now, so I communicate with my homeboy on the this Getting Out app. So I'm pretty sure it's things like that in every state. So and
Yep.
I'm able to send money, send text messages, get a 5-minute call a week. Every now and then I get a 15-minute call, but I was telling you off camera about his situation. So I don't know when I'm gonna get
Yeah,
that again. So but shout out to
it,
you, man, and your team, man. And I
I
definitely
appreciate it.
appreciate you for spinning the block and doing it one more time, man.
Yeah,
And the people, just a little insight, man, on what it's like, being locked up on Christmas, and some of the things that go on, in the Arizona prison system, man, on a supermax level at that. So yeah, I think that's been very insightful, man, for a lot of people, man. And
yeah,
once again, all this awareness that I'm raising, man, like, I ain't trying to glorify none of these, certain lifestyle or anything like that, but
of course.
people need to understand the things that go on in there before they get there, man. And that's just all that it is to it when it comes to these prison interviews that I'm doing. That's the main message that I'm trying to get across, and at the same time, let people know that I got a homeboy that's trying best to make it home. So just kind of want to throw
Hey,
that in there, man. For sure.
if you don't have money, you don't got to necessarily put money or even a phone call on the phones. I didn't get no letters. I got 3 letters, to be honest, my whole 3 years. I didn't get no postcards. I didn't get none of that. But I'll tell you what would have made every single one of my Christmases, every single one. Even if I just got a letter that all it had to say was "I love you, Merry Christmas." It didn't have to say nothing else.
Right.
If I'd have got just that, that'd changed my whole year. So if you ain't got the money to do it, you might feel like, hey, I can't afford to put $30 on somebody's books because that's a lot on the streets too at times like this. But if you got an address and you can write somebody, take 20 minutes out of your day and just write them and tell them how much you miss them or care about them or love them. It makes a huge difference.
Definitely, man. Definitely. So, bro, like I said, man, appreciate you for doing this, man. I'm gonna go ahead and
You already
wrap
know,
this.
bro.
Shout out to my new viewers, my new subscribers, man. If you're new to the channel, man, make sure you hit like. Feel free to comment. It don't cost nothing to subscribe, man. Happy holidays to all. It's been another edition of More to Live for the Voice of the North, reminding everybody, why would I settle for less? My last name is More. Peace and blessing to all. We out.